everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. Hanging out in Studio 22. We're already having a party. We're having a good time, but that's not unusual to this show. So, hey, party time, Mom. And we're having a good time in here with Party Foul Steve, who hasn't bathed this week.
Once.
But he did brush his hair. He did. You cannot mention Steve's hair without him running his fingers through it. There you go.
That's what the ladies want.
They like that?
Yep, they like it.
That just oozes sex appeal right there. And Hot News Natalie's sitting over there in the peanut gallery. How are you doing today?
I'm excited for today.
Yeah, it's
Kim's
gonna be
kind
fun.
of a celebrity to me.
We haven't announced who our guest is
sorry.
yet. You're
I
so
ruin it
fun.
every time.
Now, you do.
Re-rack.
You love easy tiger. You love jumping the gun. And then of course over here, Puppet Master Mark sitting at the helm of the starship and Candice, Queen of the Ethiopians. Hey girl, hey. And Bougie Sean, he's sort of in there. Look, there he goes. Oh, yeah. He's our token black guy, the only black guy I know with white privilege, and he gets to sit over in the corner. So anyway, we're hanging out here in Studio 22, and as Natalie alluded to, I got our friend Kim Gatlin sitting over here in the hot seat, hanging out, and going to have a good time, having a good conversation with her. She's a Dallas girl. Put a little wide shot there so everybody can see. Boom, look at her. We're in here sweating together.
We are.
I want everybody to see these shoes, though. If you take nothing away from this episode, look at these shoes, girl. Let me tell you something. I bet those things make a racket in the dryer.
They're pro.
Those are awesome. Are those hard to walk in? I don't want to try.
They're comfortable.
I don't want to try. No, these are comfortable, Kim. These are comfortable. But it's hot. It's still hot. They haven't fixed the air conditioner here in Studio 22. But we're going to have a good time. Who is Kim Gatlin? Well, I'm glad you asked that question. And by the way, before we get into this, go to YouTube if you're going to watch this and go to wherever podcasts are downloaded and subscribe to and get it there so we can count the numbers. We're capitalists. We like to be able to tell our advertisers what we're doing. She is the author of the book that is sitting right here in between us. It is called Good Christian Bitches. And I just love saying that phrase. Good Christian Bitches. Party time, Mom. And by the way, that's a phrase we use around here because my mother always gives us a hard time. She says it always devolves into party time in Studio 22. So we just go ahead and get the party started earlier. So for those of you with delicate sensitivities, GCB. Right there. So tell me the inspiration, because this thing became the inspiration for a television show, but we'll get into all that and all of that stuff that happened there. But what was the inspiration for the book?
I was going through a divorce and I was trying to have as little damage as possible to our children.
Yeah.
And I was seeing a therapist and trying to maneuver it as best I could. And the women that I thought I'd get the most support from were the least supportive, and they happened to be like my Bible study girlfriends. Yeah. And so I was talking to another girlfriend of mine one day who wasn't really much of a believer, Yeah. And she said to me, I'm just really floored by the behavior of some of these good Christian women. And I go, you mean good Christian bitches? And we both just died laughing. And I said, I swear to God, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to call it Good Christian Bitches. And then I felt like I had to because I didn't want to be one of those people who said they were going to write a book and never did.
Yeah.
So.
But I know that folks, and you've probably caught grief. I know you have caught some grief over the title and the name and how dare you say.
In the same word.
But let's just get into the vein and the spirit of what you're trying to communicate. You're like me. You were just blunt about it and said, this is what I'm dealing with. And I've always said that the American church, and I spent a lot of time in third world countries all around the world. I've seen the persecuted church. I've seen Christians that are really up against persecution and oppression and losing their lives for their faith and things like that. And so we kind of live in an age where if the air conditioning's not right and the Starbucks coffee's not in the lobby and the music is too loud, or you got to have the fountains and all these things.
Cushions are too thin.
Exactly. You got to have all these things for us to go to these Americanized massive churches that are out there. And for many of us, it's a feel-good social club. And I don't care who gets offended when I say that. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
And they're more of go in there and expand your mind and feel positive about yourself rather than it
and
truly
see and be
being,
seen. It's like
a
Sunday. It's like their version of a country club almost.
Exactly. It is. And you want to play your part there and those kind of things. And so you just called it what it was. I mean, you just said, I'm coming at you.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, make no mistake, I had to examine my own heart and think how many times somebody looked at me and thought, gosh, if that's what Jesus looks like, I don't want anything to do with it,
Yeah.
But it was just really funny because the time that I really expected for it to be supported and embraced and encouraged, I was getting ripped to shreds,
Yeah.
And Rudy and I were both really careful. I didn't want people thinking poorly of my children's father. He didn't want people thinking poorly of their mother. So there was no blood on the sidewalk. There was nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
So they just made it up.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, this is not, you're not going in Barnes and Nobles and buying this in the devotional section.
no.
That's not what this book is. Okay, not what this book is. This is a story. I mean, you're
It's a
telling
novel.
based on your life, and I understand exactly what you said. It's a fun book. It's obviously a great concept, and you have caught some flack all the way to even Newt Gingrich kind of saying, well, they would never say that about Muslims.
Can you tell? Oh, yeah, but they would. It could have been good Muslim bitches. It could have been good Hindu bitches, good Jewish bitches. I mean, just that part was interchangeable. And it's funny because the producer on my show was Jewish, and he showed his mother the pilot before anybody else saw it, and she goes, "Well, that's just Miss So and So at the synagogue." You know?
So, like, really, they could have just saved the space and called it bitches.
Yeah, exactly. Worldwide bitches.
It is party time, Mom. No, let me tell you, what you gonna say, Boosh?
I just want to say bitches. I mean, everybody's saying it. I just want to say it, not get in trouble today.
That's what people are like, oh my gosh, what have we gotten into? I love it, man, because I go around and around with folks and I say, just have fun. It needs to be, people need to be able to laugh at themselves. And I love what you said about kind of turning the searchlight on your own heart and saying, hey, this is, for every finger I point at somebody else, I got 3 pointing back at me. And, I do that all the time. And I believe in self-deprecating humor, to look at myself and my flaws and just be able to laugh at it,
Yeah.
But I'm also going to mock people, too, because that's what I do, and I don't care who they are.
Right.
I mean, that's in my job description, so we have fun with it. But you write the book. The book obviously comes out. It's got great reviews, and it's a fun book to read. I haven't read all of it, but I was just kind of scanning through some of it and reading your bio. And it's like entertaining, and obviously Hollywood picks up on that.
It was crazy. I just thought it'd do well locally, because I didn't think that as many people were going to play the parlor game of who's who. I was really kind of surprised at that. And I was telling Natalie earlier that the people that should have been, some people think reflection is better left to mirrors, as we all know, Yeah. So the people that you thought might have had something ring a little hint of truth to them had no clue, that they were anything like that. And the people that never crossed my mind in the last 20 years were like, I can't believe you put me on your book. And I was like, no, wait, who are you again?
Exactly.
But it really emphasized that old thing we all hear about, how everybody's really the center of their own universe. Because I couldn't believe how many people just made it about them. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a story. So my ex-wife wrote a novel 10 years ago, and I promise you, every bad guy in the book is me. And all of the good dudes in the book are an amalgam of all of her ex-boyfriends from college, who was amazing and apparently walked on water. So yes, that is true, Kim. That's exactly what happens. All the negative stuff was me, and apparently I died in the end of that book. But anyway, so.
Oh no! Is this like the mother of your children?
This is my ex-wife. This is my ex-wife.
Title,
So my
Chad's
wife
a
Jade and
bitch.
I have a fantastic marriage, and I do understand everybody knows Jade and myself, and a lot of times Jade's on the show as well. Everybody loves Jade, and folks who don't know, most people know. We were both married before. She has one, I have four, and her one I still consider my own. So
Of course.
we got 5 kids.
That's awesome. I have a stepdad like you, and you won't believe the difference you're making if that's the way you approach it.
I
It's
love
incredible.
him like my own.
Yeah.
When I pray for my kids, he's on the top of the list too. So it's one of those things. But and a good relationship with my ex-wife as well. But it's fun to laugh about.
Yeah.
Because, we do things in our young life and then we come out of it. And you talked about being in therapy. I do what I do. I got into the world of comedy because for me, it was therapy.
Oh, sure.
To just go out because I was depressed and I went out and, it's good to go out and find an artistic expression that kind of you're able to get it out, get it off your chest. And a lot of folks don't take that. Like you said, a lot of people say they're going to write a book and they never do.
Mm-hmm.
You did it. Mm-hmm. You did it. And it was a great book and it turned into some huge things. And I want to get into this because I want to tell you just a bit more of my experience because I want to see how it compares to yours. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a sitcom idea a while back, and a lot of big people out there in Hollywood got on board with it. We pitched it to ABC and CBS and Fox and TBS. Eric Tannenbaum, who was the executive producer of 2.5 Men, he had gone over to Lionsgate, so he picked it up. Lionsgate had it, and so we were pitching this sitcom idea. We're about to start pitching a different idea out there, but I'm kind of a conservative guy. I'm outspoken in that way, and sometimes I get a little political on things, and that didn't bode well in Hollywood, right?
Right.
But it was a great idea, and a lot of folks love it, and who knows, it's not dead in the water yet. So I've kind of had that experience, which for me was surreal, because you go out there, and here you're in all of these major studios and these major executive producers and writers and these folks that are on board. And it's kind of, I'm just a redneck that grew up in Georgia and lives in Fort Worth, Texas now. And I'm just salt of the earth, what I am. What you see is what you get, sort of. How was that experience for you, though?
Yeah, it was crazy because I was really lucky that a lot of my media friends that freelanced for national publications wrote about it. And Newsweek, a friend of mine wrote for Newsweek, and they don't do book reviews in Newsweek, but she put me in Periscope. And it was the same issue that had that, I know it's called something, I should know the name of it, but it's that red, black, and like pale blue portrait thing of Obama was on the cover.
Yeah, the hope.
So yeah. So it was like the week before the election. So I'm sure that was like more of a collector's issue.
It was.
So many people picked that up that wouldn't have picked it up otherwise. And then my phone just started blowing up. And the 2.5 Men guys called me, the Ugly Betty, the Office, all this. They started calling me. And literally, I would walk into these meetings and I'd put my hand on the doorknob like before I'd walk in. I'd think, okay, God, they can't eat me and I might learn something. And I'd just walk through the door, and they were all really nice, but I didn't know what I was doing. And then finally, Patrick Swayze was a good friend of my ex-husband's. And Patrick was sick. He was still with us, but his secretary is a good friend of mine, and she was like, will you call your attorney and see if he'll help her? And so he did, and he took me to William Morris. And it was so funny because they were like, I self-published my book.
I was going to ask
originally.
you. Yeah.
And well, the thing is, I knew I was too afraid to let a publisher do it because I am a Christian and I do love God. And so I didn't want them to butcher it and make it something it wasn't supposed to be. And so when I went to the lady at William Morris, I mean, she had like 300 manuscripts in her office that no telling how long they'd sat there. But I gave her my book on a Friday afternoon. She called me Monday morning and told me she wanted to represent me. And I always kind of felt like it ended up being like more my calling card kind of. And plus then I had like an official issue of what I wanted it to look like out there, so people knew like what was really in my heart and what I was trying to say. And so the show was originally supposed to go to HBO.
Okay.
And I was so nervous about that because it could have ended up soft porn, And when it ended up going to major network, I was like, oh, thank God, because I just felt like we were being protected in that regard because they couldn't go too far off the rails with it. With it being on HBO, they could have.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's I have people who watch this program and the other things that I do and comment, and they always had a commentary and their opinion about my time in L.A. and the things that I do, because I was with the Gersh agency. My agent just moved over to Paradigm, so I'm with Paradigm now. And, my manager's in L.A., and he had, Mad About You for 9 seasons.
That was a great show.
He represented Paul Reiser for 23 years. So he's a TV guy. All these guys are TV guys.
Right.
And so going out there is one of those things where, like you, I didn't lose any sleep. Like, I let those guys run with that. I just created the ideas. I'd jump on a plane, fly out there, sit down for a 45-minute meeting with guys like Tom Werner, that had everything from, Soap to Roseanne to the 70s show. And then I'd turn around, fly right back. And then I didn't lose a wink of sleep over it because I was, like you said, they can't eat you. And they're not going to kill me. And plus, I'd take a shot of tequila and roll on Molly, and I was set. So it was.
I had fun in LA.
I loved everybody, man. I had a blast in those meetings. I was like, "What's your kids' names?" So
we're gonna be friends.
What's your number? Put your cell in my phone. I'll text you mine. Yeah, so it was a great experience because you'd go in there and you'd sit down and you think, man, all of the people that you've seen on TV and movies have sat in these same seats and pitched these same ideas. And I also realized that when it comes to the TV business, you can come up with a really good idea. And like you said, she had 300 manuscripts sitting on her desk. You got about a 1 in 1,000th chance of that thing ever even seeing the light of day.
Absolutely.
And it ever sticking. So the fact that yours did is one, kudos to you for writing such a creative and incredible, unique idea. Because, we'd go out there and pitch sitcom ideas and all these people would say, yeah, that was done on Three's Company in 1978. And I'm like, look, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So I admire people who can come up with a creative idea, and it's so unique that they say this story needs to be told. And I'm one of those guys who hasn't completely written Hollywood off yet. There's crazies out there, but there's crazies everywhere.
You'd be amazed at the number of conservative people out there that will pull you aside and go, hey, I'm one of you. Just don't get me killed.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got a lot of them, and folks that represent me, from my attorneys all the way down, and or all the way up even. It's interesting to see that. But I say that if you want to put your voice out there, what greater place to do it? I mean, we use social media these days, but what greater place to do it than Hollywood? It's a huge platform. It's a massive platform, and you just never know what doors God might open to get that voice out there.
Yeah, it's so funny because this has been just such a, bumpy road, and it's like it was never really completely done. Like after the show got canceled, Kid Craddock approached me about
You gotta
funding
quit
the
naming
musical.
off dead dudes, okay? This is like Patrick Swayze and Kid Craddock, and one time I was sitting down with Chad Prather, and
God rest his soul. No. And that's terrible. I just thought about that. It's
I know.
like,
This has turned into a very morbid episode.
I'm starting to
you
feel
are
like-
a good Christian bitch.
I'm starting to feel like I'm really bad luck. How are you feeling, Chad? But
My pulse.
Seriously, he was going to fund a musical out of it. I mean,
Wow.
he was all in. I mean, he loved it, and apparently he owned like a huge publishing catalog of
Right.
Broadway
Sure.
shows, which you would have never guessed. But anyway, and then about the time that Kid passed, and that was no longer a deal, they were circling back to talk about, because when we got canceled, I mean, in their defense, all there was network and cable. You didn't have, what is it?
Amazon,
Yeah,
and,
Amazon
all
Video,
the
Netflix,
OTT networks like
all that,
Amazon
Hulu,
and HBO Go.
yeah.
Even Facebook these days has
Right.
their own. Yeah.
So, I mean, our only options were like major network or cable, and that was it. And then now
Yeah.
there's all this other stuff. And so when it came up, it was like, let's take a shot at this again.
Yeah.
So I felt really fortunate in that regard. But
So now when the show got picked up originally, and you got, I'm assuming they at least took you to a script and got the writers on it. It was picked up by ABC.
yes.
Was that right?
Yes. Darren Star optioned it from me first.
Yeah.
He's the guy that did Sex and the City and Melrose Place, Beverly Hills 90210, and all that.
So basically you kind of had to take your baby and hand it to a
And
team
it's so
of
hard
writers.
because you've got one baby in the nursery and they've got 50.
Yeah.
And that whole the squeaky one gets the grease doesn't work in that deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody keeps going, "What'd you do?" And I was like, "I was just really nice to everybody."
Yeah.
And I let them know I was really grateful to be there.
When I first started going out to Hollywood and sitting down with these guys, they were throwing around terminology that I had no idea what they were talking about. So I started buying books and reading them. I'd read
Yeah.
all through the night of like how to sell a screenplay and all these things. And,
Right.
And so I was trying to do this crash course of how to learn the terminology, because I'd go out there and I was like, I'm in a different world here.
Oh, well,
You
and
know?
see, my cousin has been an actress like her whole life. Angie Harmon, she was on like Law and Order.
Oh, I
and
love Angie Harmon. Woo! That's your cousin?
She's pretty,
Well,
yeah.
come in now. Let me stop for a second and talk about Angie Harmon.
She's a smoke show.
Used to be, back 10, 12 years ago, they'd say, who's the hottest woman on the planet? I'd say Angie Harmon.
See?
Yeah, I know.
I knew I liked you.
She's still married to...
No,
No, they got divorced, didn't they?
They did.
Thank God.
nah,
That's,
you're telling me.
see, what was his name? See,
I don't remember.
What he played for?
I forgot his name.
Football, whatever.
Yeah,
Oh
basketball,
yeah,
something.
Angie Harmon.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. You'd love her.
Yeah, Lee, boy, stop the clock right there. Yeah, Candace, throw up an Angie Harmon pic right there. Wow. Anyway, so you're talking to Angie.
Well, I mean, so I knew a little bit about television just from her always working in that business, but I just kind of, I mean, this sounds crazy, but I really approached it like, what, God's in charge. Either something's going to happen with it or it's not. And I mean, I just kind of waited to see. And I tried not to hold on to it too tight, and I felt like I really wasn't, because every time I'd think, oh, well, that was fun, then something else would come up where it was, reemerging. And the thing is, that's the elephant in the living room that we all grew up with. If you grew up in a Christian home and if you grew up going to church, everybody knows that one of the meanest women you've ever met in your life goes to your church, and she
That's a fact. It's some of the craziest.
pretends to be holier than thou,
And if anybody watching this thing wants to disagree with that, you're lying.
Yeah,
Because, I mean, it's
exactly.
some of the meanest folks out there. And it really is.
Well, what's so funny is, like, my mother she went through the worst. Everybody goes, did you get a hard time from that and all that? Nothing happened to me nearly as bad as what my mother went through.
Mm-hmm.
It was awful. And I mean, if you think mean girls are mean girls in middle school, just wait till they're 70. It's like they are pros at that point,
They've
got
lived
it
that
down.
long.
Yeah.
Listen, if they've lived that long, then trust me, they've honed some skills.
They have mastered that meanness, I'm telling you.
Kidding.
But seriously, like, one of her friends, I'll never forget, she had a tendency to play around and like astrology stuff and, want to do people's charts and all that kind of stuff. And they were always talking about this woman like she was a practicing witch, okay? And she was the one who was the most offended by my title. And I'm like, when's the last time you darkened the door of a church? What are you talking about? It was just crazy to me. And the people that you would have thought, my grandmother who passed away about 5 years ago, she was still alive when my book came out. And I thought my dad was going to tell her about it, because she's a dyed-in-the-wool Southern Baptist. And he was like, no, I'm going to let you tell her about that. And I'm like, great, thanks.
Yeah.
So we go to lunch, and I go, so I've written this book. And I said, it's a novel. And I said, but the title of it's called Good Christian Bitches. And she just busted out laughing. She goes, well, we've all done a few of those, haven't we? And I was like, okay, well, I'm good with it. Because, she was 88 and still teaching Sunday school.
Yeah.
She walked it, So if she was okay with it, the lady who's over here doing astrology charts isn't going to bother me,
Yeah. So let's talk about Angie Harmon some more. Jason Sebold, that's who she was married to.
Justin. I'm kidding. You're right. Jason Sehorn. She was married
Sehorn.
to.
Jason Sehorn.
He's the father of my niece, my second cousin, so I should be kind.
Yeah, Jason Sehorn. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it was see something. But anyway, enough about it, Angie. But no, that's exactly the truth. And it's funny that people get so bent out of shape. Like a lot of times in my comedy shows, I'll start off, and my comedy is, at least by my standards, it's a clean comedy show. I'll show you the edge. I'm just not going to push you over.
Right.
I'll make you feel a little uncomfortable.
Sure.
And some people feel a lot uncomfortable. But I'll say something. I'll say, well, I just heard every Baptist butthole in the room pucker. And this is a butthole puckerer right here. This book. This is one of those that you can hear. You can almost feel the wind leave. The air just leaves the room. You could hear that. That's not them gasping. That's their buttholes puckering.
That's hilarious.
I know. So that's and the emotion. You can just feel it right in your sphincter. Some people are watching the show right now going, I can't watch this anymore. It's funny. Tighten up, folks. Hot news.
Yeah.
Did you watch the show?
I did.
Did you see the show? I never got a chance to see the show.
I know. I didn't mean to really give her away, but I really was. I totally got into that show. I feel like maybe the opening scene was maybe at church or there was a.
Actually, the guy that Angie's dating now is a guy named Greg Vaughn, who's an actor.
Bougie.
And
Greg Vaughn. Put that name down.
When she first told me, it was a year ago Thanksgiving, she first told me she was seeing him. She said, a guy named Greg Vaughn. I go, wait. I go, Greg Vaughn. I go, I think that's the guy that died getting. Can I say?
Yeah, you can say. Yeah, you can say blowjob.
I think that's the guy that died getting a blowjob in a Bentley in the opening scene of my show.
Oh, that was the opening scene.
That's not in my book, though. I'll have you know. That was Hollywood.
Yes, that's Hollywood doing that. See, folks, you can write a good devotional book and see what it becomes. The dude dies in a Bentley.
So I immediately pulled it up on my phone and I showed it to her on YouTube. I was like, that guy? That was hilarious.
Heck of an actor.
Yes.
That
Still in the
Greg Vaughn
family.
guy. Hey, the next
way to
time
go.
Vaughn's in a Bentley, could we put a hit on him? Maybe send out somebody to take him out pleasurably. Because Angie Harmon, I need her back on the market.
Why are you looking at the black guy to take out a hit? Like, look at Party Foul. He was in the Marines. I've never touched a gun in my life.
Yeah, but Party Foul would mess up a hit. That's why we call him Party Foul.
We're probably going to have a drink together.
Bougie, I barely trust you.
Get blowjobs in a Bentley.
Yes, of course I'm going to ask the black guy. Granted, you don't know any black people, but whatever. We're like your token white friends.
Not a single black friend.
He's got some. They don't claim him, though.
He's probably got one.
You got a token black friend?
I am the token black.
What do you say, Nat?
I hope that that we get to see Kristen Chenoweth in some.
So Kristen Chenoweth was in the original
Yes.
ABC version, yeah. Big fan of hers.
Big
Isn't she
fan.
awesome? She's so fabulous.
So talented.
Oh, and so sweet. Sugar wouldn't melt in her mouth. I mean, seriously.
I've heard so many good things about her, and we have mutual friends, and they're always just singing her praises.
She's the best. She really is.
Incredibly talented.
I mean,
And how tall is she?
about 4'10".
She's pocket size.
Little bitty.
She
thing.
makes me feel svelte. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
And I'm like maybe 5'4".
yeah, she's pocket sized. But that'd be great. So the CW, have they picked it back up, and they're going to run with it?
Well, they were supposed to. They made an announcement at Thanksgiving that they were going to put it in this season.
Yeah.
But then they've had some problems with the writers and stuff, so it's going to be 2020 like originally.
It's so funny when you get into dealing with Hollywood and their timetables, and I learned a lot, like what you got to do in the spring and what you got to do buying season, and then They'll get the writers together, and so like a couple of years can really go by before.
I told them they suffer through things in dog years.
They really do.
I mean, it's like, oh my God, what? I mean, it's like this has happened at lightning speed. I was like, oh my God, I've aged 1,000 years since this process started. Don't tell me this was so fast.
Like that new movie that just came out on Netflix, The Highwayman, with Woody Harrelson.
We watched that just the other night.
And Costner, Kevin Costner. They originally wrote that script for Paul Newman. I mean, that's how far back that went.
I heard that.
And they gave Costner that script like 13 years ago to do something with, and the thing's just kind of. And it's you're exactly right. I mean, it's a hurry up and wait in the world of television and movies.
It absolutely is.
It really is, and that's why you have all these movies that have been made that never get released until somebody becomes really, really big, and then they're like, hey, let's pull this off the shelf and release it as a new movie.
Or like you said, if they become really big, then they've got the ability to kind of insist somebody do it, you know? But I mean, like I knew so many people, and this is what scared me to death, that they had their books optioned for a film project or a TV project. And it's like that option had been renewed every year for like 20 years.
They just keep it. Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, how do you stand it?
Yeah.
You know? So I just felt real lucky that I'd ever saw, the light of day for 10 episodes. You know?
10 episodes, and from everything I've heard, everybody that's seen the show loved the show. They enjoyed the show. Was it a critical issue, or
no?
Because there's no way to justify or even know what it is in Hollywood that they say, okay, we're going to get rid of it. We're going to cut this show.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. Actually, those 1 Million Moms tried to take credit for getting it canceled. And there's like 50,000 of them, by the way. There's not a million of them. But I got blocked from their Facebook page.
I bet you did.
Imagine that. But anyway, they tried to take credit for getting it canceled. It wasn't a numbers thing. It was internal. There was some stuff going on behind the scenes with some of the people that and they asked me not to talk about it. And I was, okay, I won't talk about it, But it really didn't have anything to do with the cast.
Yeah.
It was like the powers that be.
Yeah.
Got crossed up.
Well, and one of the things that a lot of people don't understand about the business of television, sitcoms, let's say, and movies are the same way. So let's say they take 10 scripts and they're going to make 10 shows this year. Mm-hmm. Probably 2 of those are going to be successful and continue on to another season. And they're deficiting all of these shows. So they are going in the hole. Every studio is going in the hole to make those shows. And then the ones that are paying for it are the ones that have gone on, like your Friends and your Seinfeld and King of Queens and all of these shows that they now have in syndication
that are
making
5.
billions of dollars worldwide. And those are the ones that are paying back. Mm-hmm. So Hollywood's putting so much money in all of these shows to be made that are really never going to make any money.
Well, and that's why I don't understand why they don't give them more of a chance than one season, though.
You would think they would.
Yeah.
But here's what else I've learned about Hollywood. They don't know what's best for them. They really don't. So you take, for instance, the stuff, and I know ABC CBS came out with a press release last buying season, and they said, look, don't bring us any ideas that involved Silver Lake hipsters with skinny jeans on, because it's just been, these LA people, don't bring us any more of that because they're not doing that. But yet you got Tim Allen's show, who, what's the name of it? Last Man Standing. Yeah. So ABC cancels him, and it's the third-rated. It's one of the third-rated. It is the third-rated show.
He premiered the same season I did, though.
On the deal.
They bagged us and not him.
Yeah.
So he got however many more years.
Well, he got, 7 seasons, I think, out of the thing. And then they canned it, and it was the number 3 show on TV. And no rhyme or reason to it. Everybody wanted to make it a political thing because it was kind of a conservative thing. And then Roseanne comes on, and her pilot was at least conservative in the beginning, but then it really wasn't a conservative show because after that, it wasn't about any of that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, she tweets on Ambien, and they wind up firing her and the whole thing. And
so everyone takes all devices away from me after Ambien.
Exactly, right? Because you're like, I see Gumby in the room. Gumby's eating Cheetos. Honey, you're watching C-SPAN. That's Trump. And I said, but America, most folks who would watch this show, and we have millions of people who watch this show, and they're going, we don't want to watch TV anymore. We don't want to watch sitcoms because they're so against what we believe in blue-collar, middle America, these hardworking folks that are out there. They're saying, hey, New York and L.A. doesn't represent us anymore. And so we're coming out there saying it's not about blue, it's not about red, it's about green. Let's go make money together. If this is a good creative idea that kind of tells the voice of, which, by the way, my sitcom, the one we wrote actually had just some common dude that, in short, just a common family that did well for themselves and wound up moving into Highland Park at Dallas, which they probably got involved with. Some
Happens
good
every day.
Bitches. Yeah. So
It's everybody's arrival plan.
exactly. And so anyway, it was funny those kind of worlds collided. But
I love that. Wait, they didn't like it? Or they're still looking at it?
Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll be honest with you. That idea, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I had to push too hard. The new idea I wrote that idea, but the new idea I like even better. And we're dealing with them out there. I mean, our idea is still on the table from before. It had all the elements, but I felt like it was a little too contrived.
Well, I don't think they understand. The thing that I would think is that they don't really understand that people can't relate. I mean, they want stuff that's more relatable, And I mean, stuff that you see on TV every day isn't real relatable to you and me, to what they call, so affectionately the flyover states.
Because your show, it was a comedy, but it wasn't a sitcom per se. It was a dramedy. It was more dramedy, exactly. Which I love those. And so because we were pitching an idea, which was a 3-camera deal, a multicam, and so I felt like it was a little more contrived. This idea that we're writing right now is a single cam. It's a little more edgy, and it's a little more Parks and Rec type feel, The Office type feel to what we've got going, and it's a little bit easier to do because I feel it's a little more artistic to do it that way.
Did you write it?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
So we're who knows? Like I said, I don't lose sleep over it, but it's.
You got a day job?
I got a day job. I'm doing great, and I don't want to spend 7-8 months of my.
You have a day job?
He has a night job.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I'm 24 hours. I'm 24 hours. I'm like a Bob Kraft Asian spa, man. The open neon is in the window 24/7. We take from 7 to 8 a.m. off just for a nap and to drink sake.
You get told daily to keep your day job.
Yeah.
I don't know. what that means.
I work 8 days a week. I'm telling you, we never take a break.
Isn't that awesome, though?
It is.
I'd much rather do that.
When you do what you love.
Well, and that's what I was saying too. Is like anytime anybody does any of this stuff, people don't realize like the hard part starts after you write the book or after you do the TV show or after that's when you've got to really get to work and hustle and all that. And so many people would rather go day drink. I've realized.
I would. That's why we usually drink on set here.
I was going to
Party
say,
time, Mom.
You should drink while you work.
Exactly. That's why we typically do this. And I know the weekend I had a rough last week in a series of shows in the Pacific Northwest, and so I'm trying to stop from having to take my liver out and beat it with a hammer and put it back in.
Do we need to pray over your liver?
No, he's okay. It's going to be all right. For now, 46-year-old liver. I can't believe it's hung in there. Drinking apple juice like most people drink water, and it ain't apple juice. What you got, Nat?
You know what I think would be great?
What?
You should talk to her about you and Angie Harmon being written in.
So I have this
Christian
idea of
bitches.
having Angie in my show.
I love that.
I'm at her show, and then you could go. Y'all could just
that'd
be
be great.
extras in the background.
She's not working right now.
Yeah? Well, guess what, Angie? I'm coming for you. But I do clean up better than this, Angie. But we're in a sweat box, aren't we?
It's a little warm in here.
Tell them, Kim. We got the thermostat set on
glistening.
hell. It's freaking hot, man.
Candace is in charge of that. That's her fault.
It's brutal.
Oh, Candace.
Brutal. But no, for me, it's fun. I have people, the folks that want to say, just stay away from Hollywood, don't sell out. And I was like, it's not about that. It's about, look, I'm 46 years old. I know who I am.
Yeah.
Sell out,
You know
please.
who you are.
Please sell out.
Steve's begging us to sell out.
Sell out.
He's like, please write me a bigger check.
Yes.
But, and Natalie's like, please write me a check.
I know. My gosh.
Are you volunteering over there?
We're going to put you back on the pole, girl.
Girl gotta eat.
You get
You're
paid
gonna have to
here?
come on the road
I
with us
have
during the
never
check.
been a stripper.
Oh, that's good.
Well, you're still young enough. We're going to buy you a
No,
big old
really not.
snake. Come out on stage.
We got
Take
plenty
you
of
to
room
Augusta,
for
Georgia, and
pole.
put you at the Marine Room, the discotheque. Yeah, for our next show. But it's fun when you do what you love doing.
It is.
And you're creating, and you'll be able to put it out there. And yes, Hollywood's crazy. They've always been crazy.
They have. They've always been crazy. And seriously, I mean, it was so funny because they were like, this is when you were talking about ideas, there's no new ideas again. One thing I kept hearing over and over again is, nobody's ever done this before. And I was like, oh, y'all are Jewish. Who was going to do this?
I know. Nobody's gonna write that title in that deal.
Of course, nobody's done this before.
But I love it because this story is just it's a tale of human life and experience.
It totally is.
It's digging into what everyone out there, especially if you've been in any form of society, and you've gone out there and you have to deal like again back to Hollywood. It's so funny to me. I'll go out to Beverly Hills and we'll go to lunch, and you sit there at lunch and you see these groups of women that are sitting around and they are just I'm just back and forth at each other, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
And same thing happens at Albernays and Highland Park.
I mean, they are just riding people down the rail.
The difference in Hollywood, though, is so funny. Every time I went to lunch or dinner with Darren Star and Aaron Kaplan, and Aaron was the co-producer on the show. I mean, you could see people. Well, who's she? You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't know who I was, and they knew who they were, and it was like, then why don't we know who she is and what's she doing with him when I clearly can't get a meeting or a lunch or you know what I mean? But it was like, well, who's that?
Oh, look at me. I mean, I'm just combing his shoe leather, and I go in there and I'm having breakfast with Eric Tannenbaum, and we're sitting there and we're going to lunch. I've got his cell phone number right here. And I get the same looks, I come into the office and all of his, assistants are looking like, you're not Kevin James, who is
I like
this?
that feeling.
So
I went with him for one of those meetings, and it was like, I was like, hey.
You kind of feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
it's big time. I mean, you feel, you're not impressed by people.
No.
I mean, they put their pants on, same as you, and it's just, it's the same. But, it's still fun because these are influencers, and you're out there. And I've always said, and the folks close to me, my wife, she knows, I've said over and over again, every time I go to one of those meetings, I say, if nothing ever happens, I know that the top people in the entertainment industry looked at my idea and said, that's good enough.
And if they even looked at it for 5 minutes, you've done something a lot of other people couldn't do.
Yeah. I mean, there were people, again, like Tannenbaum, who look at a guy who had, King of Queens and 2.5 Men and Mad About You, going back to that one, and he looked at it and he said, I want to make this show. I want to make this show. To me, I'm like, okay, I created something that Hollywood said was good enough.
That'll put a little cock on your walk. Yeah,
it will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It adds to my Texas swagger too.
It does.
Yeah. So it's fun to go out there and do it, but it doesn't make you.
You can't live and die by it. You can't live and die by it.
No, you can't do it.
It's so out of your control.
Yeah.
If it's over tomorrow, then what are you gonna do? You know.
Yeah.
And it easily could be.
So the CW picks it up. How often are you? When? What's your schedule looking like? You gonna have to keep going back and forth out to Hollywood, or?
I'm waiting to be told what my schedule's gonna look like.
Yeah, I understand.
Patiently,
you're kind of a hurry up and wait,
lawyer?
Right? Yeah. So people, you can still get the book. Who's publishing it now? Let me look. Oh, I got the new tattoo, and it's all wrapped up and nasty and gross right now.
Hyperion, when ABC optioned it, Hyperion is owned by ABC.
Yeah.
And so they do that a lot. They'll pick up an idea and then re-release the book under their imprint. And so, but they changed the ending of that one. So I brought you this one.
Oh, okay. They changed the ending, huh? Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Like the very last line in the book was, "Thank you, God, for always being exactly who you say you are."
Yeah.
So like they took that out, and it's like, what's the point now of the whole book?
Yeah.
It's like, don't mind me.
I like this, though. The good Christian bitches of Hillside Park Presbyterian are praying for Amanda Vaughn, or so they claim. Will their evil gossip destroy her reputation, or will she show them exactly how to turn the other cheek? I love it. It's fantastic.
It's so true because, I hate to say this, but, I tried to get a lot better. Clearly, if I was going to write a book about gossip, it probably wasn't good for me to be holding court,
This is a book that gossips about gossipers.
Did you name names? Or did you change the names to protect the innocent?
I totally changed. Well, and it started out, that's what I was going to tell you when I had my children, and or when I was seeing the therapist about my children.
Yeah.
The therapist was like, you should journal. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to do that, And then like 3 or 4 sessions, like, you really should be journaling. I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to journal, but thanks, Finally, she goes, okay, there was this study they did, and they took this group of men who was sent to prison and had them journal, and this group that didn't. And you could see how much, in so much healthier way they were processing stuff even by their handwriting.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that the first time you told me you wanted me to journal? Then I'd have done it, Yeah. So I did start journaling. And then the more stupid stuff that would happen in the neighborhood, I was like, and I said to one of my girlfriends, I was like, literally, if I'm going to have to start changing the names in my journal, because if I get run over by a bus or something, there's some people in this town that are going to be so humiliated, you know? And so that's why I decided to do it a novel, because, and then also, I used a ghostwriter, and I used a Jewish man for a ghostwriter, because I didn't want some other Christian bitch bringing her own personal baggage to my project, you know? And I knew she'd try to. And then also, just I figured like a man's perspective wasn't going to like interfere with my female perspective.
Right.
So that's why I used him. But I did it because I wanted to make sure that I didn't bring any prejudice to any of the characters without even realizing it, because I felt like if I handed somebody their head, then I wasn't any better than they were. Yeah. You know, so I had to be real careful of that. But so like even the main character is like 4 different people. You know, and everybody was just for that very reason, and people still were insisting, "Oh, that's me." It's like, okay, well, you know what? That can just be you.
Fine, it's you. Here's a T-shirt.
I'd be like, "Why do you even want to be her? I don't understand that. She's hideous. Yeah. You know, why are you insisting on being her?"
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Did you lose any friends?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
legit?
I didn't at first. Here's what's funny.
It's like voting for Trump.
No, you're not kidding. I mean, seriously. In the beginning, you know, it doesn't matter what you do. And I know Fort Worth isn't like this, but Dallas is bad like this. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. Okay, if you get any attention for it, everybody is up your business like nobody's business. Right? Okay, well, when my book first came out, it was like, oh, yay, you know, oh, she's been one of my best friends for 20 years. And I'm like, who is that? You know? Yeah. And then when the show came out, it escalated, you know, it was even more. And then this one particular woman who was like one of my mom's best friends for like 40 years decided, I'll tell you what it was. D Magazine did a half a page thing over the parlor game of Who's Who. And she guessed that this woman, she and my mom had birthdays the same time. And then her husband and my stepfather had birthdays at the same time. They'd traveled together. They'd celebrated their birthdays together for 40-something years. D Magazine put in there that she was this one particular character.
Really?
And she calls my mother bawling and breaks a dinner plans for that night, and had not spoken to my mother since.
And that was all because of what the person put in D Magazine that was unfounded.
And I even had emails from ABC Publicity saying, please protect me from these people. Nobody walks away from D Magazine not looking like a tar baby. You know, so I don't want to talk to them. Yeah. I mean, I had the proof that I never spoke to them.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you find out people are some kind of crazy. They really are.
Good magazine bitches.
And you just
Magazine.
You kind of really find out how neurotic and how like full of themselves some people are, that you would have never dreamed until something like this kind of causes it to be exposed.
We are all our own favorite subjects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny how narcissistic we are. Well, Steve is admittedly.
Oh, well, yeah.
Steve's 100% psychologically diagnosed narcissist.
Yes.
Are you a full-blown narc?
Full-blown.
I'm surprised I didn't date you, Steve. I seem to be drawn to them. Sorry, present company.
Jerry, you a narcissist?
No, he's not.
What are you doing after the show?
That's funny. Are you going to write another book, or you think you're done with that?
You know what? Again,
I think you could burn the place down.
I've got good Christian bastards all teed up and ready to go.
Yeah! Is that about me, Kim? Come on.
Can I be in it?
You can be in it.
Bougie Sean?
You can all be in it.
I want to go to brunch and take Bougie Sean over in Dallas and just, those girls would love you over there, Bougie. They'd be so happy to know a black person. They'd love it, man.
Remember that time we took him to lunch in Jasper?
Yeah, we took him into Walmart in Jasper, Texas. That was uncomfortable.
That was
we got off the tour bus and went to Walmart. I was like,
Jeez.
Bougie. And he's in there buying kombucha and all this keto-friendly snacks and stuff. And I'm like,
you're buying spam in a can.
Man, buy some soul food. Represent. Can you not get a tater log from the deli? Some collards and a pulley bone? Son of a bitch.
I have no idea what you just rattled off
I know,
on that
I can't
list.
take my black friends anywhere. They're too cultured.
I think what you wrote about is so fascinating, because there is a piece of Dallas that is unlike most of Dallas.
You know, it's so funny because everybody who moves to Highland Park from elsewhere, or they live in Highland Park for a certain amount of time and then they move away, they're like, okay, what was that freak show?
It's a bubble.
Yeah.
It is 100% a
Okay,
bubble.
well, here's what's really funny is on June 5th, I have a book coming out called Bubble Wrap, and it's RAP. because it's like all these girls are moving to Highland Park and they're trying to be more Highland Park than Highland Park, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And then they'll do something like put a trampoline in their front yard. And like, no, we don't do that over here, So, I mean, it's literally like a handbook. It's kind of like the neighborhood equivalent of the preppy handbook. It's like, let me teach you how to navigate this, because clearly you're struggling,
I completely agree, because even like my boss, that's Leslie Crozier. She's kind of in that grew up in that, went to Hockaday and all of that. And even after spending 5 minutes with me, she's like, you would never survive.
Yeah, no, actually, I think you'd do pretty good.
I wouldn't. I probably would put a trailer in my trailer.
I
would be like Uncle Eddie.
Well, that's what I told him. I said it's the Arkansas equivalent of the washer dryer on the front porch.
I would take the wheels off the trailer before I.
You got a $3 million house, doesn't have a backyard. I mean, it's like, and if it doesn't have room for the trampoline, clearly you can make friends with a neighbor that has one.
Yeah. It's crazy. See, that was totally what kind of this family that did well out in rural Texas did well, and you want to give your family a better life and your kids, so you move them to Highland or University Park or something. And now it's just these salt of the earth, common sense people who move in there. And that was our idea. Now they're trying to deal with this community around them and and you talking about that's exactly right. You come in, you're like, well, we're just doing what we do. This is our house and our property and our yard. And then people are like,
yeah, no.
So I couldn't
it's not.
have my barbecue pit out
There's
front.
where you're wrong. Yeah.
No.
You may pay the
my
taxes,
gosh.
you may have qualified for the mortgage, all that, but no.
No. There's an unspoken.
There's a way we do things
I grew
around
up in
here.
Augusta. Like people say, well, how much does it cost to be a member at the Augusta National? I said, well, it doesn't matter what it costs. It's not that expensive. If you have to ask, one, you ain't making enough money. And it's not because of the price.
Right.
It's because of, like, they didn't want Bill Gates. It took Bill Gates forever to be a member at the Augusta National, at the Masters,
That's so funny you said that, because that's one of the things I talk about in my new book is how the word afford is not always about money.
That's exactly right.
You can't afford to do that.
That's exactly right.
And I'm not talking about your bank balance.
Yeah. It's funny. Hey, if you are of the mental constitution, if you're strong enough, if you can handle it, and deal with a whole lot of truth that's going to make you think, make you laugh, you need to get good Christian bitches. And then it's going to come out on the CW. I'm excited to see what they do. Hopefully, Kristen will be back on it.
I hope so. You're going to have to come to Austin when we're filming.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Angie and Chad.
Bring your friends.
I'll bring it on down. We'll do it. I mean, I'm in high demand looking like this, but whatever. I mean, here I am wrapped up in plastic wrap. I got blood oozing out of my arm, and it's all sealed up in there and gross.
It'll be worth it.
Yeah, that's good. Whatever. It's hot in here, so we're going to get out of here. Kim, thank you. You're welcome anytime to just
Thank
come
you
hang
so
out
much
and
for
talk.
having me.
And I want to follow up with you in coming months. I want to find out what the process is going. We'll get you in the new studio where we have air conditioning.
That'll be a treat.
Yeah, I know, because you and I are having hot flashes in here. So.
I mean, I'm old and I'm tired and I'm hot.
Well, you're lovely, and I love those shoes.
Thank you.
Listen. Find me on the road. Go to watchchad.com. You can find my tour schedule out there. We got a ton of new dates that are about to be announced. Get Kim's book, check it out, and read it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Chad Prather Show. Always go to where podcasts are offered. Subscribe, download, leave us a review. Only 5 stars. We don't accept 1-star reviews. We do not. We're having too much fun here. And I just encourage everybody to stay horned. I love y'all. God bless. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.